My wife is a convert to the Catholic faith. She had a tough time with confession. Bishop, she understood the thinking, but she couldn't get it through her head that when you go to confession, you got to confess your own sins, not your husband's. Bless me, Father, Ray has sinned. She made her first confession when she was 39. Now, gentlemen, you read these marriage books, they all say the same thing. Have to be on your knees for your wife. Okay? She goes in the confessional, I get on my knees, and I stay there the whole time she's in that confessional. So I took a week off from work. She came out. I said, well, honey, what do you think? You're right, Ray. I feel clean. Good. So what'd you tell Father? I'm not telling you that. You can tell me you're not bound by the seal. I'm not telling you, Ray. I figured it out. If you want to know what your spouse or your kid tells the priest in the confessional, you kind of got to go in the back door. So, honey, what did you get for penance? Now, if you know what they got for penance, you can kind of reason backward to how rotgut they were. She said, I guess I could tell you that. I got a rosary. A rosary, that's not bad for 40 years of pagan muck. She said, with the Stations of the Cross at every bead. Oh, I kind of wish you'd told me that before I married you. Then she asked me, all right, Ray, what do you usually get for penance? Me? Most of the time? Half a sign of the cross. Sometimes a quarter. That's hardly enough time to levitate. The part about the 10 kids is true. That's why I'm here. It's quieter here. It smells better. People find out I got 10 kids, I always get this. Now that you got your own kids, what have you learned? I learned something very critical. I rarely took them out in public. You take them out in public, invariably, and you know this, many of you have raised your children, they're going to pull some stunt that embarrasses the heck out of you. And if people know you're a shrink, it's worse. Because you can almost hear them thinking out loud, let's just see what Mr. Psycho Man does about this one. But I figure it this way, we all get our vengeance. First 9, 10 years of life out in public, they embarrass us. After that, Dad, you embarrass them. Oh man, come on, Dad, don't wear the pants with the feathers. Dad, don't wave at me when people are looking right at us, and I'm not going to pull your finger. I've been shrinking for 45 years. I used to be like 6'9". The number one reason parents and grandparents come to me dwarfs all other reasons: discipline. Okay, Mr. Expert, you tell me how to get him to stay in bed. I can't get him to stay in bed. Chews his way down through the bedroom floor, drops into the family room. I'm back. You'll never be free. You'll never have another child. I'll be in your bed till I'm 16, that's why. And that girl's mouth, that snotty, snarly, you know, if I'd have talked to my parents that way, my head would have been rolling down the hallway. And the school people, they don't help. You know what they did last year? They closed during June, July, and August. I actually had to live with my own child during the daytime. Now, many of you are of a generation where you look at the younger folks and you have to ask yourself, what is happening? What is going on out there? Why are so many big people where the little people are concerned now so frustrated, so guilt-ridden, so unsure of themselves, so tentative, so insecure, so lost? You're in a restaurant. It's the first time you've been alone without the children in 4 years. You finally found an adolescent willing to babysit for $40 an hour plus benefits. All you want's a little peace. You look over at the door, you see me walk in back when my 10 kids were all under 12. Would you think to yourself, oh, is that precious? Waitress, get that family. Sit them right here next to us. I just want to watch them frolic. You might, because this is a pro-life group. But I will tell you, most American families would look and go, how'd they get past security? That's not normal, dear people. I think what you're witnessing in American parenting today is unprecedented in human history. Why? Many factors. Don't have enough time to talk about them today. Besides, what gospel's paying me, they're lucky they're getting verbs. But there's a big factor that the older generation didn't deal with so much, the younger generation does. And that factor has undercut their authority, it's undercut their confidence, it's undercut their peace of mind, it's undercut their strength of will. And that factor is standing in front of you. Me, the shrinks. I'm everywhere. Crawling all over women's magazines, all over television, radio, putting out thousands of books and articles every year, net message. What do you know? You're just a mother. You can stumble your way along. Hopefully you won't foul it up too bad. But you want to do this right? The new modern psychologically enlightened way? Yep. Got to be state certified, congressionally mandated, child development ring, Sacramento International on Oprah. Specialist. People will say to me, this discipline thing is hard. It's tougher than I ever thought. Give me a technique, something that will help me discipline less. I got it. I developed it myself. Best technique I ever saw for disciplining any child, grandchild less. Foolproof. Do one thing. Simply lower your standards. You get them low enough, you don't have to discipline at all. I told you, quit doing drugs in the living room when we have company. We discipline because we love. Because you can't establish morals and character without it. And you know why else you discipline, dear people? Because sitting right here is the kindest, most gentle group to teach a child or a grandchild how to get along in this world. And if we don't do it now, because you feel guilty, or you're afraid he won't like you, or your mother-in-law already thinks you're the biggest she-witch to fly the face of the earth, we are turning our children and grandchildren over to them. They will discipline our kids. A judge, a landlord, an army sergeant, a police officer, an employer, I shudder at this next one, a wife. Somebody's going to teach them. I'm fond of telling folks discipline without love may be harsh. Love without discipline is child abuse. Because ultimately that child's going to get hurt by those folks out there. Now, part of the problem here is many of you have raised your children. I've become convinced that you were the last generation across the board to know who the parent was. You parented from a mindset, I am mom, you are not. Nowadays, we got these young people so skittish, you leave him on the pot for 4 minutes too long, he's going to grow up to be a tattooed-faced motorcycle gang member on Dr. Phil. You named him John because you were hoping it would help in the toilet training. I was 3 years old, I said this to my mom. I don't like you. She looked at me. Raymond, you're a little behind. Stopped liking you last year. Well, I was back before you could psychologically smack parents around, you know. One of my kids tells me I don't like you, so what? I got 5 or 6 who do. Any given moment, I got a 50% approval rating. There's an interesting phenomenon that occurs in my office. A parent will come in, describe a litany of trouble about this long, then they'll say this. I think I'm giving you the wrong impression. Overall, he's a pretty good kid. And I'll ask, how is that? Well, he's not on drugs or anything like that. One of the new moral high bars, he's not on drugs. I ask my clients, what do you want looking back at you at age 22? What would you hope to be able to say about that child? Now, no guarantees, but hope and prayer. If you're content to say, well, I get given away kids are turning out nowadays, I'm counting my blessings. Parole officer says one of the nicest kids he has. Yeah, you don't have to parent that hard. Be like those folks out there. You'll probably raise a kid not on drugs. But if you want to look at that kid at age 22 and say, he's 1 in 100. morals, character, seeks God. That's a beautiful human being. I always challenge my clients. Are you ready to be a 1 in 100 parent then? Dear people, look at this group. You can't parent, grandparent like them anymore. That culture is no longer on your side. And if you're going to do this according to your morals and values, you're going to be weird. Look at you. You're here at an all-day retreat conference. You're loving, caring, beautiful people. Either that or you got no life whatsoever. The culture doesn't think like you. The shrinks don't think like you. Go do a test. Go to the computer, type in child, self-esteem, search. Last I looked, this was a while back, over 100 million options. The experts believe self-esteem is the preeminent virtue, although the research says it's not related to much of anything. Type in child, humility, search. A fraction. When's the last time you heard an expert talk about humility? Humility is at the very center of what we want to teach our kids. My humility is something I'm very proud of. Somebody asked me back there, you got any new books coming out? I do. Next year I got a new book coming out. 3 Most Humble People I Know and How I Taught the Other 2. Can you imagine our Lord going up to the apostles? Simon, there for a while I toyed with changing your name to Peter, but I decided against it. I didn't know what that would do to your self-image. You know, you've always seen yourself as a Peter. I go changing your identity. You've seen yourself as a Simon. I go changing your identity to Peter now. I don't know what psychological ill effects that might have. However, I have spoken to my father, and he and I agree you have a future in this operation. If you can conceive it, you can believe it. If you can believe it, you can achieve it. 12 more weeks of Tony Robbins management courses, Simon, you'll run this outfit. Probably not. Bishop, I always wanted to go to confession like the politicians. Bless me, Father. Mistakes were made. And I'd like to apologize if God took something I did out of context, misinterpreted it, and became offended by it. I'm sorry for his sensitivity. At one point, my children were 12, 11, 10, 10, 9, 7, 4, 3, 2, and baby. And as you heard, my kids are all blessings through adoption. Some of you may be adoptive parents. The agencies do not tell you this. I figured it out about the 3rd kid. It's a great benefit of adoption. You got kids thinking about it? Tell them this one. If you adopt in December, you still get the tax deduction for the whole year. They pay for themselves that first year, then you start to fall behind because they eat more, but you cut back into food, you can break even September, October. My wife and I were in this ongoing conflict. It got worse as we got more kids. Ladies, I believe you will agree with me. First of all, my wife does not work for a living. I don't know what she does. You quote me, I'll deny I was even here. I've seen what the woman does. I want no part of what the woman does. She'd take them to a grocery store when they were little. And I'd go. If I was heavily sedated, I would go. You had to see it strung out behind her like ducks, hands at their sides, not a touch thing. And they would not deviate 6 inches either way out of a straight line the whole 2 hours they were in there. No, they wouldn't. Leg irons wouldn't let them. I got 3 white kids, 2 Hispanic kids, 2 biracial kids, 3 black kids. People would look at my wife. Some of them were pretty bold. Is this some kind of club or something? Some of them wouldn't say a whole lot, but I could read their eyes. That major dork don't realize them ain't all his. I suspect her, but I can't catch her. My 10 children have what the experts would call risk factors. Now, in psychological parlance, a risk factor is anything that would make a kid tougher to raise. Poor prenatal care, poor postnatal care, abuse in the womb, neglect in the womb, high maternal stress, low birth weights, heavy drug exposure, crack, narcotics, barbiturates, heroin, cocaine, nicotine, marijuana, alcohol. My son Peter, birth mom was told, you're pregnant, don't worry about it. There's a blood clot growing next to the baby. Baby grows, blood clot wins, suffocates baby, problem solved. Well, the problem made it. He was born 2 months premature, but 1 month intensive care. Petey made it. My daughter Elizabeth. Birth mom got pregnant in the 7th grade, went to Akron, Ohio to get her problem solved. She didn't realize she was in her 7th month. Yeah, the baby's bigger in the 7th month. You know, I used to do an awful lot of talks to secular groups, and I would use this example, and I'd watch their faces, and they did not like hearing this. Why? Why this is the way it is. In the 7th month, the baby's bigger. You can't just flush them out, suck them out. You got to pull them out, and they don't come out in one piece. You got to crush skulls, and you got to rip limbs off. That's how you get them out. And that little girl, who was 13 years old in the 7th grade, panicked. She called us the next day. We weren't expecting a 10th kid. We thought we were done at 9. I guess you could say Lizzie was an unplanned adoption. We weren't practicing safe phone. My son Sammy, 2 weeks before due date, 35-year-old birth mom was told something is terribly wrong. Do you mind if we test? Tentative diagnosis, corpus callosum agenesis, severe neurological birth defect. Worst case scenario, institution for life. You got to believe everybody in that birth mom's world was against her having this kid. She gave birth to Sammy. We visited Sammy just over the weekend. We went down to where he was. He goes by Sergeant G at Fort Hood. It was a shadow on the ultrasound. The test was totally inaccurate. So my kids have this confluence of developmental yuck that would make them harder to raise and slower to socialize and slower to form consciences and more impulsive and more learning problems. I got some like that. But you know, I wouldn't consider any of my 10 children strong-willed. Well, this dude is one toke over the line, sweet Moses. How could you have 10 kids under those circumstances, not consider any of them strong-willed when you now know, parents, grandparents, you now know how everybody describes kids nowadays. Mind of her own, stubborn streak a mile wide. She is so independent and determined, going to do what he wants. White is black, black is white, contrary, oppositional child. 6 gone on 16. The child is 6 gone on 16. Very high maintenance youngster. Very high maintenance, challenging child, very challenging. We have a difficult child. Difficult child is redundant. It's an IQ joke, and this whole group right here just, you sit them according to IQ, this whole group here is, am I delusional? I don't think so. I think there's a simple explanation. The strongest-willed of my 10 kids is not stronger-willed than his mother. Is that why we have so many strong-willed kids out there, dear people? Because the big people have lost will. We're not as sure of ourselves. We're not as confident. Authority's a bad word now. You can't use it. You got to use a sticker system. You got to use iMessages, active listening, win-win scenarios. And the child will go, oh, I've just been so blind. I see what you're saying. That's why you're the grown-up. I'm the child. It's also clear to me now. Let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya around the campfire. I learned a lot of psychology from my dad. My dad went to God before I was born. Excuse me, Lord. I'm going to raise a whole bunch of kids. I don't want to complicate the whole affair. Give me 8 or 10 phrases. I'll just repeat them over and over. Got a lot of dads in here. A lot of dads. Good for you guys. And I noticed dads are not as versatile as mothers, and dads are kind of stamped out of the same mold. I finally figured out why that is. You know how moms have to go to Lamaze classes to learn how to be Maz? She's looking at me like, did I leave the iron on? Dads must go to La Paz classes, get their phrases. First time I heard this, I was 3 years old. You gonna cry? I'm going to give you something to cry about. Oh, first father ever to fling that one around. Raymond, You go get me something to spank you with. Fathers are generous people. We don't get credit for it. My dad was a very giving man. He's always giving me stuff. Dad, I can't shovel the snow. I got a bellyache. Raymond, I'm going to give you a bellyache. He's always giving me something. You're not going to find I'm going to give you a bellyache in any parenting book. It's not there. By today's enlightened psychological standards, my father was a parenting barbarian, a Neanderthal. Judge it by the acid question. Not was he psychologically correct. Folks, our culture's in big trouble when psychological correctness is replacing moral correctness. When more people are asking, is it normal, as opposed to, is it right? Normal for a 3-year-old to melt down fit on you. It's not good. 14-year-olds can get snotty and disrespectful if you let them. It's not right. The question is not, is it normal? Sin's normal. Is it good? For my dad, a high school dropout during World War II, his discipline worked about 50% of the time. That's sky high. How? 2 things. He loved me desperately, and I knew it. This is a relationship, dear people. This is not a psychological process where you got to dot all your psychological I's and cross your psychological T's. And you know, many of you watching your children raise their young children, and you're thinking, my gosh, they're just so complex about this whole thing, and they're so neurotic, and just so much second guessing. And mothers, grandmothers, shut your mouth. There's advice given to mothers and mother-in-laws on a wedding day. Sit up, shut up, and wear beige. That's good advice, unless they ask you for your opinion. My son called me a couple years ago. He said, hey, Dad, can I ask you a question? I said, Andrew, is this about Rosie? Rosie was about 3 at the time. Yeah? I said, wait a minute. You really want my opinion? Here, sign this. How's my dad doing this? He loved me. You know what else he had? He had something that is not as common these days. Many of you had it. When Pop said, Raymond, I asked you once, leave your sister alone. Have a seat. Don't get up till I tell you. I had a seat. I couldn't dream of getting up. You know, one of the most common things I hear now. Well, I'd like to send him to a corner. I can't. He won't stay. I'd like to have him write an essay of apology. He'll refuse. By the way, I do have a technique to get you past that if you're a parent, grandparent, and I'm not telling you because it's in the books. Money changer in the temple, right here. Sometimes I'll tease my clients. What would your mother have done had you talked to her the way your daughter is talking to you? No, I didn't. Well, you were a teenage girl once. Why not? I may have felt like it, but I didn't do it. Why? I knew. You knew what? Something would happen. What? I don't know. Why don't you know? It never happened. Why didn't it happen? I never did it. Why didn't you do it? Something would have happened. What? I don't know. Who's on first? I don't know. Third base! It's an Abbott and Costello routine, but you see what it speaks of, dear people? I call it the perception of authority. Many of you had the look. Remember the look? Well, you look at a kid now, he looks back at you like, what are you looking at? You want a piece of this? 6 of our kids we got at infancy, 4 we got later. The twins had a pretty wretched history. They were 4 years old. Birth mother ingested every toxin she could get a hold of. We don't know where the kids were the first year and a half of their lives. She shunned them all over the place. They were put in a foster home where the foster parents were sweet people, but they didn't discipline them. They felt guilty. Remember what I said about love without discipline is child abuse because the world will hurt you? We've since found out that my son and daughter, John and Joanna, had 2 chances to be adopted prior to us. The agencies weren't looking at us. We had 4 kids at that time. They figured, no, we're not going to drop a couple of 4-year-olds into your house. Both families that were chosen before us backed out. They met the children and they reacted. No, thank you. We were hoping for something a little more along the lines of a child. You see what I mean, dear people? That little 4-year-old boy and girl lost a mommy and a daddy. Why? Because big people looked at them and said, something's wrong with you. You're warped. I gotta admit, didn't look too good. First visit there, Johnny punches me in the face, attempts to strangle my wife, and kicks the foster father about 14 times during one of his emotional eruptions. We walked out of there, and my wife had developed a tick. And she said to me, Ray, we got to rethink this. I don't think the tax deduction's worth it. I said, honey, it's 2 tax deductions plus the credits. They never made Johnny go to bed. Oh, they tried for a year and a half or so. They tried. They'd lay with him and they'd promise him stuff, and he'd get up and he'd roam the house and he'd cause damage. So the first weekend visit to our house, my wife says, Raymond, why don't you put the children to bed tonight? Honey, I'll give you $100 if you do it. I don't have time for that. I'm writing a parenting book. All right, guys, come on. Let's go. Heading for bed. Now, everybody came running except Johnny. Johnny just stood there. No, go to bed. I'm not a big fella, but I've been a weightlifter all my life, and I know one thing for certain. Even now, I'm stronger than the biggest, baddest 4-year-old in the whole world. The child is going to bed. So I went over and I bent down, kind of like the veterinarians tell you, don't tower over a wild animal, let him smell your hand. Put my hands on his shoulders. Now he could tell by my grip, this is, how shall we say, a non-negotiable psychological interface. At that point, he erupts. Head starts spinning around. Green stuff's coming out. Bishop, I don't know if this is theologically correct, but I think God put holes in them to leak off the pressure. Now, most of them will leak up here, but you can get leakers down here. You really can. And sometimes you get pukers. Now, the interesting thing about a puker is that they develop out of it. You can't really get yourself that distressed for that long. About 1 or 2 years of age, you start to fade out of it. But hey, wouldn't it be great if you didn't? He picks you up for the first date, and you're not real crazy about the guy. So he says to you, can I call you again? You don't say a word. You just go over to his passenger door and go, even he could pick up on that nonverbal. Johnny wasn't going to go to bed. At that point, we had 654-431. I couldn't let him roam the house. We'd visited many times. He knew I was going to be daddy, so I picked him up. I put him over my head, off to the side, because he's dripping. I got him to the bed. I put him in bed, and I just held him. I put my hands on his chest. I just held him. He couldn't move. He was just like, I didn't hurt him, but I wanted to convey a message. Johnny, it's bedtime, son. Daddy's not going to let you go until I decide you're going to stay. And please, don't get up after I leave, because I'll come back. Man, you should have seen the look in his face. I went from Disney World to the county jail. My son Andrew is 6. He's in the top bunk, and he's watching this scenario. I go, Andrew, would you please talk to your brother? Johnny, Daddy says go to bed. You better go to bed. I remember one time I didn't go to bed. You're not going to like what's going to happen. You know that, Johnny? You think he's going to go to bed? He doesn't leave, John. He goes out in the hallway, and he'll wait for you. And if you come out, he'll crack your bottom. He don't care what the caseworker says. Andrew, that's enough. Sound like Mom. How long do you think I had to hold that boy before he went? You know, it was under a minute. Now, had the foster parents tried this, they were in for a several-hour brawl, because his view of them, his perception was, no authority, don't try this, no authority. He didn't know quite how to read me. I could see him sizing me up. Plus, I had a tattoo put right there, said born to kick butt. Now, don't mishear me, you can get carried away. My dad got carried away. He said things made me neurotic. Raymond, you shut your mouth and eat. I'll teach you to backtalk your mother, young man. Come on, Dad, I already know how. I'll show you to hit your brother. Go ahead. You fall out of that tree, break both your legs, Buster. Don't come running to me. We are a microwave culture. We want results. We want them certainly. We want them now. We want them with minimal effort. This has affected parenting and discipline. I've tried everything with this child. Nothing works. Finally, I got so frustrated. I sent him next door to play and moved the family while he was gone. Now, along the way, they tried things that wouldn't work. They just didn't stick with him because they were thinking, how long is this going to take? It's been 3 weeks. Bishop, you ever have somebody come to confession and go, bless me, Father? Okay, why don't you just bless me because I really don't have any sins anymore. You know, given my age, I've conquered most of them. I mean, how much time do I need? You know, I'm in my 60s. This should be all done by now. Or are you all like me? Bless me, Father. Here's the list. It's the same stuff I've been telling you for 40 years. And see, we could do that, but if this kid doesn't get it after 4 weeks of writing essays or 4 weeks of sitting on the steps, what is wrong with him? When is he going to get this? Alexander? Bell? You got... Stay with me. You guys embarrass me when I'm on the phone. You know that? I don't want to embarrass you or me anymore. We got a new house rule. From this point forward, when I get on the phone, please be respectful. Don't interrupt me. That includes this. I'm going to excuse myself from the phone. I'm going to put you in your rooms for the rest of the call. If you come out, I'll ground you for the day. I'll come and get you when I'm ready. Now, my clients will say to me, all right, how long do I have to do this? And I'll say to them, 10 times, 30 times, 80 times. I have no idea that'll be $80. And I always tell them, it doesn't matter. I can give you plenty of ideas on how to take care of a problem. I can't give you the will to do it. See, that's where it breaks down for most of us. You won't get away with this. Oh, hello, Monsignor. How are you? Okay, yeah, thank you. We would be flattered to be the role model family for the church children love in. Monsignor, could you just excuse me for 1 second, please? I'm going to have a little love chat with the children. Yeah, they're precious blessings from God. You know how that is. We love them desperately. Wish we had 11, 12 of them. Okay. We love you too, Monsignor. Yeah, it's going to just take a few minutes. Okay. Peace to you. Harmony, Aquarius. Thank you. Thank you. You're going to die. I'm going to rip your tongue out of your throat, wrap around the fence with a buzzer to pick at you, little maggot. Get away from her. What's that, Monsignor? No, that's the neighbor lady. She always talks to her children that way. Yeah, okay. Well, they're getting a little antsy. I mean, we're half hour past rosary circle. Yeah. Well, we still pray it on our knees in broken glass in Aramaic. Except when we're levitating, huh? Okay. I'll get him on the extension. Harmony, Aquarius. A culture says why. A culture says, will you explain to me why that person is acting that way, whether it's a kid, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a grown child. We don't look this way first for an explanation. This is the only place I can change. I can't change you. You know one of the more common questions I now get, radio, television, therapy? Will you tell me how to change somebody else? I go, I have a heck of a time changing you. How am I going to tell you how to change somebody else? But we do this. We look out this way. If that person changes, I'd be better. I do marriage counseling. Once every 5 or 6 years, I'd like somebody to come in my office and begin like this. You know why I'm here? Because it has finally occurred to me I am extremely difficult to live with. And I had to drag my spouse in here to have my spouse help me take a good hard look at myself. No. And we do this with kids. See, I don't see kids. I see the parents, I see the grandparents, I see the aunts, the uncles, the big people. That's where the change takes place. Unfortunately, we don't have a natural inclination to look inward. Call it fallen human nature. Before I go, I'll give you a few of the more common this way explanations. Diet. Cut out anything red, cut out anything sweet, cut out anything artificial, cut out anything remotely tastes good. Give him a dry cracked wheat brown berry tofutti sandwich on bean sprouts. This kid will get better math scores, kiss his sister on the lips before he paints murals on the church ceiling. Well, there's one problem with diet. The better research doesn't support it. Oh, it's good for health and nutrition. Our kids' diets are awful. But the idea that if I eat this, I'm going to act like this has a very weak link there. But that notion's been swallowed whole by our culture. He went to that party last night. He had 3 Reese's peanut butter cups, 2 cans of Mountain Dew, and a Kit Kat. He came home and torched the dog. Now, I told those people it was the Kit Kat. Probably not. Birth order, middle child syndrome. I tell parents you're that afraid of middle child syndrome, don't have an odd number of kids. Got an odd number, have another one. Give one away. Wipe out that middle spot. Truth on birth order, it only holds one place, oldest and only, as a group, a little more independent, a little more achieving. Maybe they develop a shade quicker. I don't think that's their position. We all change our styles. That first kid, you boiled everything she came within 50 feet of. Last kid, you throw him this big dirt ball. Say, here, chew on that. Wipe your mouth off in the gas can before you come in the house. First kid, dual videotape of every burp and bowel movement he ever had. Last kid, 1 snapshot at the birth, 1 at the wedding rehearsal dinner. Hey, Dad, now how come I got no pictures? It's not true, son. Your sister did a popsicle stick sketch of you in 1st grade. We kept it. Besides, you look like your sister. Use her pictures. First kid, you sneak into his room, you stick a mirror underneath his nostrils. Make sure he's still breathing. Last kid, you tell the dog, get out of the crib! Don't lick her in the face! No, I was talking to the baby. You don't know where that mouse been. Poor dog. Somebody asked my wife when our 9th one, Peter, was about 2-3 months old, Petey sleeping through the night yet? My wife said, I don't know if he is, we are. You kind of get to that point, you know that? You grandparents are treacherous people. You lurk. You lie in wait for us to have children who do to us what we did to you. My mother was at our house some years back, sitting in the kitchen, saying nothing. My mother is 100% Italian. If she doesn't ask me if I'm hungry every 8 or 9 seconds, she is seriously depressed. Ma, what are you thinking? Ray, I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you and Randy are getting very sloppy in your parenting. Huh? Elizabeth gets away with murder. I said, Mom, wait, Lizzie was the youngest one at that time. She was about 7. Mom, Lizzie's a very cooperative child. She doesn't need much discipline. I'll give you an example. Last night I noticed, it was about half hour past her bedtime. It was about 3 a.m. All I had to say, Elizabeth, bedtime please, immediate cooperation. She took out her cigarette. She put it in the ashtray. The other kids just flicked their butts on the floor, not Lizzie. In the ashtray. Tell me I'm getting sloppy. And you know, some ideas are so dumb, only intellectual types could actually believe them. When I was in grad school, I got this idea and I thought, oh, this will fade, this will die, because it is so counter to reality that nobody could actually agree with this, and it's back with an unbelievable vengeance. The idea that there are no differences between male and female. No differences between men and women. No differences between little girls and little boys. They're just socialized into different roles. You give a little girl a front end loader, she'll carry it around for 4 years, become a special ops tank commando. You give a little boy a baby doll, he'll carry it around for 4 years, become a nurturant preschool teacher. 50% of little boys will immediately rip the head off that baby doll and turn it into a machine gun. We are wired different. God says it, human history says it, the research says it. For example, little girls, women, are more verbal than little boys. Men, they talk earlier. They talk better. They talk longer. That's why if a mom drifts into a discipline trap, it's usually something along these lines. Talk, talk, nag, nag, repeat, repeat, negotiate. Talk, talk, nag, nag, repeat, repeat, negotiate. If a dad drifts into a discipline trap, it's usually something along these lines. Tolerate, tolerate, oblivious, oblivious, ignore, ignore, kill! Tolerate, tolerate, oblivious, oblivious. I have 5 boys and 5 estrogen Americans. My wife had the big van. I had the vehicle with 5 boys in mine. She had the 5 girls in hers. She pulls up to me next to me at the light. She looks down at my car and she does this. The extent of the conversation in my vehicle took place about 17 miles down the interstate when from the back seat one of my sons says, "Oh, Dad, Dad, tell Jay's to roll down the window." You women are so observant, you know, you're detail oriented. We guys don't understand this. How is it you do this? How do you notice everything about everybody at all times, forever? To be used upon men who get to a point in our lives where if we even notice our wives are out there, we get extra credit. My little girl would come downstairs. You want me to pay attention to that? Come on. My little girl would come downstairs. She'd be like this. Sarah, what's the matter? Sarah, it's 20 feet from your bed to here. What could possibly have upset you in that distance? Fine. This is touching me right here. I don't like the way this touches me right here. My socks are twisted. They got strings on them and they won't stay in a straight line. My boys would come down. James, is that pee on your shirt? You see it now, Dad? First day of kindergarten, I asked my son, "Andrew, how was school today, buddy?" "Okay." "Good. So what'd you do?" "Nothing." Or, ladies, if you have a very communicative male, "Stuff." What is the name of the lady who stands in front of you for 6.5 hours? I don't think she told anybody, Dad. Joshua says he's got one called Teacher. I'll ask her if they're related. First day of kindergarten, I asked my daughter, "Hanny, how was school today, baby?" "Well, okay, Daddy. My teacher's name is Mrs. Bartley. Mrs. Bartley has 3 children, Jessica, Jason, and Ashley. I know their birthdays, favorite colors, middle names. I'll tell you those later. We did 12 activities. The pumpkin cutting activity we started at 8:07. Is that a stupid time or what? Ashley was my best friend till 9:30. Then she got mad at me. I don't even know what I did. But Jessica told Tiffany I could be her forever friend till tomorrow. Now, Mrs. Bartley has this brown mark right here. You can't tell it's there, and she goes over by the window, and if she bends down kind of like this, if she does, the sun comes through the eastern blinds off the clock, reflects through her bifocals, forms a prism on the window. Daddy, I don't think she even knew it was there, so about time somebody told her. They both had the same teacher. Psychological correctness is a quagmire. You'll overthink, you'll overanalyze, you'll overtalk, you'll overnegotiate, you'll underenjoy. That's why young parents who have more than the allotted 1.86 children that you are now allowed to have in our culture. Did you ever notice that? You can have relations with any person, anytime, anywhere, anyhow. But the one thing we'll criticize, if you're a mom in a committed marriage who has more than 1.86 children, then we will abuse you. Are these all your children? I used to say, of course not. The oldest is at home with the triplets. I do have the books back there on parenting and grandparenting and emotions and Jesus the Master Psychologist. I do have them. I'm going to be able to stay probably till about 3 or so because then I got another thing tonight. I want to close with this. Now, I know you as well as I, there's a phenomenon in Christianity right now that I think is unprecedented in human history. And that is a high percentage of the children who were raised in the faith are leaving the faith. Very high. Okay? Over 50%. And many of you beat yourselves up. Where did we go wrong? What did I miss? How did I blow it? Why do I got these kids doing this? And the ladies especially torment yourself. You just beat yourself up and you don't know when to shut your mouth regarding these kids, toward these kids. I'm going to prove to you right now, logically, your days of beating yourself up are over. You may still pray for the kids, but beating yourself up, no legitimate right to do that. Please just answer yes or no to these questions. Is there a God? Yes. Christ God? Yes. Was he sinless? Yes. Could he perform miracles? Yes. Did he have a perfect understanding of human nature? Yes. Could he get most people to follow him? Oh, you think you're better at this than the God-man. Can you do a miracle? Can you even do a crummy card trick? Our Lord himself couldn't get most people to follow him. What do we think, folks? There's a spiritual formula that just guarantees you're going to have a St. John Bosco or a Mother Teresa? I got 10 kids. Some of them going to serve a church. Some of them probably going to serve time. Got one going to Penn State, one going to State Penn. My wife and I will never tether our peace and our joy to the decisions our adult kids make. We will not. Because we will be automatically at the victim status of what they do. We will not. That's why I had 10. You're a baseball player, Hall of Fame, lifetime average, you bat 300, you're in the Hall of Fame. I just got to get 3 kids doing okay. 300, I'm a Hall of Fame father. Let me close with this. Am I on time? See, I was teasing you. I'll stay with the time. You know that. Okay, I probably shouldn't say it. Where's Maria? Maria, there's a problem here, and you might want to suggest this to your timekeepers. It would be so nice if she just held up a little card that said 3 minutes, 5 minutes. She sold up these cards. Are you done? Shut up. Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah, you didn't do this to the other speakers. Elderly gentleman and his wife were shopping. She bends over to pick up a can of clean peaches. She sticks it under her coat. She tries to walk out without paying. Woo! Goes before the judge. What'd you do? I stole a can of peaches. How many in a can? 12. 12 days in the county jail then. Her husband couldn't believe this. What he's hearing, he said, I gotta speak up. Your Honor, please, may I speak up? Go ahead. She also stole a can of peas. Such a joy talking to you. Thanks.